I'm a quadriplegic and I have a team of caregivers around me. It's how I get out of bed. It's how I eat. It's how I function. They come with their humanity. And they're dealing with my body and my stuff, and my time, and my things. And sometimes I wish something was different. And how do I attach that to the person and say, like, golly, I wish they were different? And then how do I reconcile that with my deep longing to pierce the illusion and recognize, in Buddhist terms, the Sambhogakaya, the sacred mandala, the sacred world that is ever present, always, timelessly here. And I know this field because I'm an expression of it. And so it goes to compassion. And how do I skillfully meet those moments of just the viscosity of emanation in a way that honors the teachings, that honors the true nature of the great perfection, that honors the true nature of the gift of emanating in a trillion bodies throughout every expression of being in service to this profound awakening, which is, it's the realized preciousness that has no other.
Tell me about your spiritual journey from, baby Kabir all the way up to now. And we'll pause and we'll break and we'll maybe dig deeper as we go. But when you look at your lifespan from birth and maybe before up to now, is there a thread of spirituality, or maybe it's another word you're using, that you've seen go through?
I'm so tickled with the echoes of things. This is like, for the audience, I'll just say how privileged I am to be studying as a student with you in stages in the Mind's Eye course. And we're right in this earliest part of that question in a relative sense, as we're studying the 1.0 and the 1.5 stages, our earliest first-person developmental space. And it's pre-verbal. And the timing of your question today, landing right in that container. And I'm also working concurrently with John Kessler, and we're looking at integral polarity practice through the non-dual lens. And not surprisingly, what we find when we look there are these earliest stages of development, and either even prior to that. And so I'm just fresh from spending the month looking at, like, where did this, Kabir branded experience come from? And playfully, as we're moving into the 1.5 investigation, I'm finding this kind of inclination and urge to want to play as the 1.5 expression. We were in class yesterday, and it was all I could do to not just keep interrupting all day long and just playing in that space. And from that place, I have this desire, this is an early polarity in IPP. I have this desire to know you more in this way that you're asking me to share.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a student and a friend of yours and a colleague recently, and I think Terry mentioned it also, and somewhere I might have picked it up along the way, that you're a Lama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's never been foregrounded in our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never been something that we've touched on unless we've touched on it just so briefly that it just kind of breezed by. And I wonder if you've spoken about that in the context of this wider conversation of evolving spirit. And if you, like, is there a few words you could share? Because in my sense of, to use the word spirituality, there's I've benefited so much from these lineages that we know as coming from, a particular part of the world.
Mm.
And, my cognizance of it, flowing down from the mountains to the west and becoming Islam and Christianity and Judaism, and flowing down to the south and becoming Vedas and Hinduism, and flowing east onto the plateau and becoming Buddhism, and and also that in India.
Mm.
But I have this sacred reverence for that, and to be invited to reflect. I'm just tearing up, invited to reflect on that with and by you, and to know that you're standing in the service of maintaining these precious lineage teachings that are so profound in so many lives and are so valuable to steward and to carry through to generation to generation. Can we do we have a moment to stop and have you share a little bit about that mantle that you're holding? Because I can't imagine you'd set it down for 30 seconds in any context at all.
Oh, Kabir, thank you for asking. Yeah, they do. Some people call me a lama. It is a title that was given to me by my teacher and students, and it signified in the Indo-Tibetan Buddhist tradition certain realizations, certain years of study, and certain retreats. And also, as I've shared in other parts of this podcast, in relative reality, sort of my role in my own becoming, from being a baby up through middle school and starting to discover who I was in my communities, who I was to my peers, I started to get reflections back that I was a teacher and I was a leader. And so also recognizing that seat is something that my teachers probably saw in me. I mean, even in my short corporate life, I was a corporate, executive trainer, right? So there is a skill set that I think also in the very relative reality sense comes along with that. Now at this point, it feels being a teacher is something I personally, and Kabir listeners, we're just sitting in a room together and sharing, and we're inviting you in to basically eavesdrop on our conversation. So we'll be vulnerable, I believe, with this conversation. The mantle of Lama is something that I've been reluctant at times, at different phases of my own development, in different phases of my own humaning, of being a mother and a wife, and trying to be in the world or not in the world, or on long retreat or not in retreat. It's kind of the reluctant hero archetype is something that I definitely acknowledge. And also, I have never felt more called to come out once again. It almost feels like the role of being a spiritual teacher, or being a spiritual leader, which is not Kimberly. It is a seat. When I'm in the seat of particularly my lineage, which is Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Vajrayana, right? In the lineage of the Dalai Lama directly, in the direct lineage of the Dalai Lama, when I'm in that seat, it's not Kimberly. It's, yes, a transmission, yes, a channel, yes, pouring through everything that I have been given in the lineage and passing it through. And yet the feedback I also get from my student colleagues is what they find most powerful often isn't when I can define Tibetan or do a very detailed Mahamudra lineage or pass on a tantric empowerment page by page and explain it all. It's when I'm vulnerable and I'm Kimberly. And somehow, for me, and even since we first met, for me, that recently, the past decade or so, there's been, is it Lama Kimberley? Is it Kimberly? Is it, how do I integrate these things? And how do I be vulnerable and real with who I am and where I am and my own issues or shadows or what may be going up, and also not let go of the seat. So when I'm on the seat, I'm the teacher. When I'm off the seat, it used to be I wasn't the teacher, but now it's kind of coming all together. And there's something about, talk about a fourth wave or a post-integral approach to spirituality. There's something about, yes, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is a phrase our listeners are likely going to be familiar with, and being the teacher, being the Lama when I'm giving, say, a tantric transmission or I'm giving a tantric empowerment, come from years of training and years of retreat and frankly some realization, right, which I worked hard for, and yet also allowing the humanity at the same time, this sort of flex flow between a hierarchical, and I don't mean that in a pathological way or a negative way, but the honoring the leader when they're in the seat, and also integrating the horizontal, that we're all the same. And that's what's arising to share right now. And I talk about polarities. I sometimes have found the swing back and forth between those has been a challenge, and the swing is getting less and less, where I can be both at once at the same time. But I'm also curious about how you experience, let's call it spirituality or states or transcendence or awakening or waking up, because really the role of teacher and Lama is about waking up. It's about holding that particular seat. How do you experience that now, and how has that changed through your lifespan or not too?
Out loud, thank you for that share.
Yeah.
So much precious there. I'm really grateful to have that window. And thank you for the work that is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is I was about to declare something about the time, but there's so much fullness in my experience right now. And so much opportunity for care. And that kind of work is a certain essential kind of care. And it's such a volatile field that we're breathing through now. And perhaps it's always that way. And I'm struggling right now, today, this week, with the concepts of, with the looking at, which is coming from a first person arising as and expressing in that third person objective.
Yeah.
What is this nature about? When I find something and I notice that it's triggering me to want to respond, to want to react, to want to step into care, to want to figure out, to want to puzzle and contemplate. I think there must be a real threshold around what is my obscuration and what is wrong with the world, And I think more the first and much less the second. And
Mm.
yet, as this manifest tool of evolution's freedom that we call Kabir, works through the process of realizing its profound nature, there's an honesty we have to claim, I think, around what moves us and to what we're called to respond. And we have to notice simultaneously, almost paradoxically, what the limiting belief in that. Like if someone is doing something that I don't like, I'm a quadriplegic and I have a team of caregivers around me. It's how I get out of bed. It's how I eat. It's how I function. And these are people, age 25 to nearly 40, and they come with their humanity. And they're dealing with my body and my stuff and my time and my things. And sometimes I wish something was different. Mm-hmm. And how do I attach that to the person and say, like, golly, I wish they were different? And then how do I reconcile that with my deep longing to pierce the illusion and recognize, in Buddhist terms, the Sambhogakaya, the sacred mandala, the sacred world that is ever present, always timelessly here. And I know this field because I'm an expression of it. And that's not just an idea, but that's the nature of my experience on some occasion, if I can call it that. And so it goes to compassion. And how do I skillfully meet those moments of just the viscosity of emanation in a way that honors the teachings, that honors the true nature of the great perfection, that honors the true nature of the gift of emanating in a trillion bodies throughout every expression of being in service to this profound awakening, which is, it is just, it's the realized preciousness that has no other. That is the emanation space of my practice. And there is no more useful participation in that than to deepen the realization and let that arise as conduct in that great context. And so increasingly over the last 5 years, my practice has refined to be unwavering in the centrality of the waking up intention as the absolute ground and body of any participation in the world, whether that is trying not to starve to death or trying to save it.
Yeah.
And that's just become, as that becomes increasingly real for me, it's increasingly joyful for me. Mm-hmm. Like everything starts to take on a flavor of celebration. And that, I'm surely projecting, but my story, is it Lama Yeshe that you said?
Yeah.
That laughter is the laughter at the futility of my practice. Like, gosh, I have this great enlightened intention and I don't know how to get this silly body up out of its deathbed and put it to any more use than it was, and here it goes. Well, I guess I'll have to get another one, and feeling, not dying, but feeling that, like, I'm as a quadriplegic, they don't have solutions for sleep apnea that I'm aware of that don't entangle me in the night and cost me the night's sleep because the equipment is just too cumbersome and wrapped up in my loose hands. And so I lately don't breathe for a quarter of the night, which is really hard. Like, and I wake up stupid.
Oh no, I doubt that, but
Well, Shirley, I was trying to meditate this morning and I just couldn't get it done. And then all struck me. I was like, oh, yeah, your brain is completely out of oxygen right now. You need to sit up and drink and start moving in your day before you're going to have any kind of concentration skill.
I see.
And so, but even that, like, I'm able more and more to rest in the laughter of, the futility of these temporary bodies. And yet, I have it now, and I intend to have it as long as it will last.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean to do good things with it, which is, I mean to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean to let that pour out with the least hindrance of my own confusion into the world as useful and skillful, loving kindness and compassion in this body of the meta crisis.